All right, well, hello everyone, and welcome to the third session in the mobility track. I hope you've had a very interesting and engaging session so far. I want to just welcome you to this session, which is really trying to address, we've heard a lot of sort of big picture ideas, but this session is really to introduce you to some programs from across Massachusetts that are addressing senior mobility in their communities in very different ways, all across the state. So we have from Boston focused all the way to the Berkshires. So we have a nice selection of urban, suburban, and rural. And I wanted to pick up on something that Joe Coughlin said about there not being a single sort of magic silver bullet to fix this problem. It's going to take a number of different approaches. And I think you'll see that with the programs and organizations highlighted here today, that no one community has every single piece of the puzzle to solving mobility problems. But if we can learn from each other and replicate different programs that are successful across the state, we can start to fill in those gaps and address the picture in a more holistic fashion. We've talked a lot about giving up the license as being a very emotional moment. And what it represents is loss. It's loss of freedom, it's loss of access. But the reason why is because driving yourself from point A to point B is the way that we assume that transportation has to work. And it's an emotional issue to think of giving that up. But if there were a comprehensive array of options for you, if you could sort of spontaneously go get that ice cream cone, at whatever time of day you wanted that ice cream, it wouldn't matter to you if you couldn't take your car, if there were 4 other things that could get you there. So this session is really about trying to highlight programs that exist that are, working towards increasing those mobility options and working towards, helping people think through how you can get around your community without your car. We will hear from Jayne Colino first. She's the director of the Newton Department of Senior Services, and we're highlighting this program as an example of a very comprehensive, robust transportation system in a suburban area. It's close to a city center. They have a lot of area, and it's a great example of senior transportation in a community. We're also going to hear from Tim O'Day, who's the executive director of SCM Elderbus. And it's a partnership with the Regional Transit Authority in Worcester, and they're doing senior transportation in a number of different communities. We'll also hear from Erica Girgenti, who is the director of the Adams Council on Aging, and her work on walkability and pedestrian access, particularly in a small rural town. We often think of walkability as something that urban centers are working on, but in fact it's a very small town focusing on senior pedestrian access. And then also we'll hear from Janet Seckel-Cerroti, I hope that's how to say that, from Friendship Works, which has a program that is really, it's not transportation focused exactly, but transportation is a large component, and it's about supporting someone from their door through the journey to where they're going, which is a medical appointment, all the way through the medical appointment and then back home. So it's really a sort of it's supported transportation, and then it's support during the actual medical appointment. So with that, let's hear from Jayne.
For those of you who were in the last session and heard, I forget his name, not Len, Ira Jackson talk about all the people moving to Boston, he did only say there were 12 people who moved to Boston. I just stopped him in the hallway and said, I'm the director of the Department of Senior Services. Could you stop talking about people moving out of Newton? We're hoping that transportation is one of the reasons that people choose to stay in Newton. I just wanted to put this into context, too. We have 2 councils on aging on the panel, and I am in the leadership of the Massachusetts Council on Aging Association, MCOA. And I just wanted people in the audience who may not be aware of the system that there are 349 councils on aging across the state. We really come in all shapes and sizes. Some of us have senior centers. Some of us have one room where somebody's answering a phone, and transportation is a key issue that runs through all of us, no matter what facility we operate under. And I wanted to put our mission here and our vision here because it's really what guides everything that we do, but most specifically the changes that we've made to transportation. And we went through a strategic planning process with the Council on Aging, the staff, and members of the community. And the emphasis is on livability and age-friendly community. And I underline the words in the mission about engagement and empowerment because that really is what is behind everything that we do, but again, particularly transportation. I started as the department head in 2005 when the Department of Senior Services was established in the city of Newton. And so I like to just give a little bit of then and now in the evolution of the transportation services. When I started, we had multiple contracts. People had to call different phone numbers for different services, deal with different vendors. There were varying rates of contribution that we asked for, and it was really focused on medical appointments, grocery shopping, and the senior center. And now, in the broad picture strokes, it's a third of our budget. It continues to grow in our budget. We have a single provider for all destinations. We have tried to bid this contract in different ways to increase the competition and to decrease the cost, but we have found that having the single provider for all the multiple destinations that I'll show you in a minute made the most sense. And we have a sliding required fee, and it's really kind of a self-selection. If people feel like they can afford the $4 requested donation we ask for a ride, we actually call it a contribution, all the way down to $2. And if somebody can't afford the $2 per ride, we do have an exemption process. And at this point, we're really not means testing. It is self-reporting at this point. And the destinations that we currently go to, I kind of put them in the way that we've progressed over time. And so, as I said, the senior center, grocery shopping, medical appointments within the city of Newton. And then at a certain point in our evolution, we actually drew a 2-mile circle around the city and said any medical appointment within that 2-mile distance. And we recognized that there were other services that provided that, but they didn't feel as accessible and to the riders. And so we wanted there to be kind of a crossover. And then, like many of us, we suffered from some funding cuts and had to cut that 2-mile circle. And we now have some destinations designated based on demand that we do go to inside that 2-mile circle. We added the opportunity for people to visit family and loved ones in long-term care facilities and hospitals. We just heard that was a struggle, and it was actually more important for the person in the long-term care facility or the hospital to get that visit from the family member, but very frustrating if they couldn't get there. Houses of worship I added because we knew that out of the 55 congregations in Newton, we had done a survey, and we recognized that the majority of their congregants were older adults, that more older adults connect and create communities in their houses of worship. And there was a little bit of pushback around that because church and state and keep that separate. And I just pushed further and said this was an important destination for people to get to. I had one person push back at me and say, well, I worship at the Newton Free Library. Could you include that as the house of worship? And I said, not yet, but that will hopefully come soon. And we did add the library and City Hall. And that's not listed separately here because that's been folded into the last bullet, which is starting July 1st, all city-sponsored events, programs, buildings, anything that has a city arm in it, we wanted people to be able to be engaged in that, whether it be going to a public hearing about a housing development or whether it's going to see the grandchildren in the play at the school or the 4th of July celebration at one of the playgrounds. We wanted people to know that we are investing in them staying engaged in the community. The village centers, for those of you who are aware of Newton, you heard about changing the design of a city and taking strip malls and making them into little mini village centers. Well, Newton is 13 villages and has 13 business centers. And so last summer, we actually added all of the village centers for whatever reason somebody wanted to go to the village center, whether it was to have sushi with a friend or volunteer at one of the nonprofit organizations. And you know you've done something right when people say, that's good, but can you do this now and can you do this now? And that's exactly what happened. We added the village centers and people said, but my CVS is here. It's not in a village center. Or I do a lot of business on Needham Street. Needham Street is a major business corridor that joins Newton and Needham. It actually generates about 25% of the tax base in Newton. And so we as a community have made a commitment to economic development, and this is senior services way to keep seniors engaged in that economic development. And then we've recently added the mental health appointments. Psychiatric appointments were always captured in the medical appointments. And I think I left out of here, actually, the 2 VA hospitals. We've had a lot of requests to get to the Jamaica Plain and the West Roxbury VA hospital. So we really track the data as to where people are wanting to go and needing to go. And when that volume gets to a certain point and we have the opportunity to bid the contract again, we do. So how it works, it is a public bid process. We have bid it where, depending on an organization's fleet, they might be able to do all the senior center transportation or all the medical transportation, but don't have the volume for the other destinations. And although we've bid it in several different ways, a local taxi company, Veterans Taxi, has won the bid the last several awards because their fleet is the largest fleet that can accommodate. We provide over 20,000 yacht rides a year. And so we may have another taxi company that would be a reasonable bidder, but not for the entire demand. Reservations are made directly to the taxi company. We actually have a city phone number that calls forward to Veterans Taxi. I didn't want people to think Veterans Taxi was providing them with this subsidized service. It needed to be recognized that it was the city of Newton that was providing that. We actually, in the first year of the contract, functioned as the schedulers, and we would create the schedule and send it over to veterans, and we thought this is ridiculous. They are in the business of doing this, and so we were able to add that into the contract. And the staff person who was doing that now helps to counsel people on the transportation services that are available. Riders do need to obtain vouchers, and there is a voucher to get into the vehicle and a voucher to come back, and that's that sliding fee. And so we do talk about the riders subsidizing the services along with the city. It's not at the same proportion, but it is a partnership between the riders and the city of Newton. And it's the revenue from the vouchers that allows me, we are able to put that into a revolving account that we can build the balance of. And so each time I've added a new destination, I've assured that I would be able to sustain that new destination into the following fiscal year and beyond. And as I said, the exemption process, people do have to ask. We do explain it to them. People have to put in an application. If somebody is receiving a public benefit already, food stamps, fuel assistance, SSI, they are automatically eligible. They just have to tell us so. And if they don't receive one of those benefits, they do have to tell us about their income and their expenditures, and we assess that that they would be exempt. And then they can make whatever level contribution, including nothing, for each of the vouchers. And the next part of our evolution is I'm proud to share with the town of Brookline and BCAN, the Brookline Community Aging Network. Brookline approached me and said, we're going to apply for some grants to bring transportation and mobility to another level, and we'd like to partner with another community. Would you like to? And Ruth Ann Dobeck and I have been working together for years, and she's such a smart, forward-thinking lady. I said, of course we would. And then they did most of the work, and they submitted the grant, and we are proud to say that we received the funding from the Department of Transportation. And the acronym you can see there, it's still quite not rolling off my tongue, but we're hoping that what happens, our goal is that there will be 2 Straits centers, one in Brookline and one in Newton. Ruth Ann and I have been talking about the SHINE model, the Serving Health Information Needs of Everyone model, where there are volunteers who are trained intensively on Medicare resources and then help to counsel people around those Medicare resources. It's a successful model. It's a proven model. We will be following that model, recruiting a staff person to run the Straits centers to really develop all of the modules and all of the collateral materials that need to go with that, but to recruit volunteers who are willing to go through that intensive training, who would sit one-on-one in a counseling session and talk to somebody, where do you need to get to, and here are all the different modes, that system, that it's not any one system that can get somebody everywhere, but to give somebody a package of here are all the resources, and to really look at it from that emotional place as well that was talked about in the keynote session. Using technology and also having the buddy system. So I'm not somebody who feels really comfortable on public transportation, but I love it when I'm with somebody on public transportation, and every time that happens, I get more comfortable. So I've actually given the challenge to our program coordinator to do a trip, to plan a trip into Boston using public transportation. So that we'll start as a group, and then individually people will be able to take those skills and move forward. So just in closing, some of the other things we do is information and referral on other related resources. Whenever we hand out information about our transportation, we also hand out information about the ride and ITN and some of the smaller programs that might be more specific to our local system. We hold the Charlie Card program on behalf of the MBTA at the senior center, so people don't have to go into downtown Crossing. They come to the senior center and do the process. We send the information into the T, and they get their Charlie Card. If there are senior centers in the audience that aren't doing that, I really encourage you to. It's a great outreach. Social services, case management, again, looks at that social issue, that emotional issue. And then we have representation on all the different varying boards in the city that speak to the senior issues, specifically the Transportation Advisory Group. And that's my contact information.
Thanks, Jayne. That's great. There's a lot of complicated things going on in Newton. Okay, so we'll welcome Tim O'Day from SCM Elderbus.
Thanks, Theodora. We've heard a lot of great information today about how difficult it is when seniors have to give up their license. Having gone through it with a parent myself, it is difficult. They're angry, they're fearful, they're emotional. After you get through all that, then the next question is, what now? How do we arrange for their transportation needs? My organization, I'll give you a little background to it. My organization is a private nonprofit. We're a 501(c)(3) corporation. We've actually been around for about 40 years. We are headquartered in Charlton, Massachusetts. We have 29 employees, and we're governed by a board of directors. We have our service area encompasses 21 towns. Each one of the towns is entitled to a seat on the board. I report to the board of directors. Our mission is pretty simple. We provide transportation services to senior and disabled clients within our service area. Again, it's 21 communities. We are a subcontractor to the local transit authority, which happens to be the Worcester Regional Transit Authority. It's a fairly large geographic area. We cover about 550 square miles. Just to give you a point of reference, the city of Worcester, the second largest city in New England, is about 38 square miles. We cover 550 square miles. A lot of the towns that we cover are very, very small towns with populations of 13, 14, 1,500 people. So it's a very diverse area. We have other towns with populations of 16, 17,000. So it's a very diverse geographic area. We had hoped to provide about 50,000 trips this year until the snows came in January and February and March and part of April, I guess. So we're going to do about 46,000 trips this year. So it's a fairly large operation. About a third of our trips are medical related. Just general doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, but we also take people to dialysis treatments. We take them to chemo treatments on a regular basis. It's non-emergency medical transportation. The thing that still continues to surprise me is about 16% of our trips are work-related. And again, we're dealing with seniors and disabled primarily. So we're taking people to and from their place of business on a daily basis. And about 14% of our trips are shopping-related, grocery shopping or just regular retail shopping. These are just the towns that we service. Again, we're in central Massachusetts, so it's a pretty wide geographic area. Just showing it on a map, the city of Worcester is the yellow portion of the map in there, the kind of darker yellow portion in there. The blue area is my service area. Those are the towns that we cover. So again, we operate 5 days a week, no weekends, no evenings, but it's a very large geographic area. The service is pretty basic. It's curb-to-curb transit service. I guess the new buzz phrase is point-to-point, but it's a curb-to-curb transportation service. We generally operate Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. We did start a program this July 1st within a pilot program. Within 2 communities, we are now operating at 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., and that was due to customer demand. So it's a pilot program. We'll see how it goes at the end of the year, but I think it's going to continue in the upcoming fiscal year as well. In order to qualify for the service, it's very simple. Residents that are 60 years of age or older or residents with disabilities are eligible for the service. There are no restrictions on the use of the service. You can obviously take it for medical appointments, for shopping. A lot of our clients just take it to get out of the house and go down to the local Dunkin' Donuts, get a cup of coffee. No restrictions whatsoever on the use of the service. The one, probably the most common complaint that we have regarding the service is we do require 2 business days' notice to utilize the service. We had heard a comment in one of the other presentations where somebody may want to just up and go out for an ice cream cone in the middle of the day. We can't accommodate that due to scheduling issues. Again, it's a shared ride service, so we have to have a couple of business days' notice in order to put the most number of people that are going to common places on the vehicle just to minimize costs. Again, some of the common questions we get about people that have recently lost their license or people that never had a license that live in some of these communities is, when is the service available? Again, it's Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. with a couple of exceptions. Again, a couple of communities now start at 6 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. Is it only for medical appointments? That's, again, a common misconception about the service that we offer. There are absolutely no restrictions on the use of the service. Again, you can use it for grocery shopping, you can use it to go out to lunch, you can use it to go down and get at the local donut shop, get a cup of coffee. Medical appointments, what about out-of-town medical appointments? We provide medical out-of-town appointments 3 days per week for each town. Again, we operate in 21 communities, so I have to allocate the resources the best way we can. So out-of-town medical, it's 3 days per week. For an in-town trip, some of the towns obviously have major medical facilities right in town. That's available 5 days a week. And is it expensive? In my opinion, no. For the client, it's for an in-town trip, it's $1.25. So we pick you up at your house, bring you to your destination for $1.25. The return trip is an additional $1.25. For any out-of-town trips, it is an additional 25 cents for each town traveled through. So if you're going to the town next door, it's $1.50, 2 towns out, $1.75, et cetera. So it's very cost-effective from the client point of view, certainly. What this particular service does, and again, I'm biased, but we allow the clients to remain self-sufficient within their own home. The common complaint that we get is either I don't have family members that I can rely upon, or I don't like to impose upon them. So we allow them to have a measure of independence. They simply give us a call, tell us where they want to go, at what time, and we provide the transportation service. It also helps the clients maintain social contact within their own community. A lot of times we transport people to the local senior center just so they can socialize with their friends and neighbors. We organize trips mostly through the senior centers and COAs to different destinations. In the fall, a lot of our clients, we take them apple picking. In the good weather, we take them to different restaurants in the area for group trips to just for a luncheon out that somebody may organize. One of the more popular destinations, if you're familiar with Central Massachusetts, there's a shop called the Christmas Tree Shop that for some reason our clients love going to the Christmas Tree Shop. So sometimes we have to send an extra van just for the packages on the Christmas Tree Shop trip. And it can be a very cost-effective alternative to a private car. Obviously, as the population ages and people are going to be giving up their cars either voluntarily, perhaps economically, they have to give up their car. So it can be a very cost-effective alternative to private car ownership. Again, it's not a panacea, it's not a be-all and end-all, but it does provide them a measure of independence. So again, I know we have somewhat limited time here, but if you'd like any additional information, we do have a website, scmelderbus.org. The other website, I'll just mention it briefly, we started a pilot program a couple of years ago to provide work-related transportation without restriction based on age, without restriction based on disability status. So we piloted that a couple of years ago in 4 communities in Central Mass, and that has taken off in terms of the ridership as well. So what we're doing, one of my main concerns was I was concerned about mixing, in effect, general ridership with senior and disabled ridership. It could not have worked out better. Some of our seniors, in effect, when they see a new face on the bus, they become their new best friend, and they just continue to carry on a conversation, and the person's trying to get off the bus, and they keep on going and going. So that's actually worked out better than anticipated. So again, we have a couple of websites up there to give you some detailed information about who we are and what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. That's a great program, and it shows real creativity, particularly when you're looking at the mixing of the employment population with the senior population. It's great to see people sort of thinking outside the box. Great. With that, welcome Erica Girgenti from Adams Council on Aging.
Great. So I'm going to try to talk a little bit about alternative transportation options for rural communities. As I mentioned earlier, I have a transportation program that's quite similar to the two speakers that came before you. At our senior center, we do have 2 vans that operate generally the northern Berkshire County of the northern side of Berkshire County anyways. But I'd like to talk about stepping in front of the challenges that we face for transportation. So I'll provide you with a little humor in the beginning, Massachusetts according to Bostonians. Getting to know a little bit about the Berkshires, the challenges that we have to overcome, and then, again, stepping in front of those challenges. So as you can see, many people don't quite seem to understand where Berkshire County is. When you think of Western Mass, it stops at Worcester. We are the uninhabited land past Worcester. So we're challenged with mountain ranges that we have to drive through just to get to a doctor's office. We have dirt roads. We have no Wi-Fi, so we don't have GPS. We don't have all those great things that many other people have on the other side of the state. So getting to know the Berkshires a little bit, like many of you, you may border some states, but we actually border 3 different states. So a lot of our transportation that we need to get to for doctor's offices are in another state, where our transportation just it's not provided as a result of funding and restrictions. So we're really challenged there in regards to getting people to memory clinics, to veteran services, to rehabilitation centers. We have them within the Berkshires, but again, depending on where you live. We also have the second highest 65 plus population in the state, and then just a few numbers there that you can read in regards to where we are. And actually in 2010, we had more 65 plus adults than we had 18 and younger youth in our community. And we'll be seeing that as a state coming up in the future, in the near future, but Berkshire County saw that several years ago. We're the poorest county in the state, so we're also challenged with some great needs like transportation to second shift opportunities, third shift opportunities. They just don't exist in our county. So I don't have any great research that can prove that transportation has a correlation to being the poorest in the county, but I would argue that it's quite possible considering that people just don't have opportunities to get to employment. Berkshire Rides, of course, Jenna Hunkler's in the room, and they're doing great efforts in Berkshire County to try to help that. And we're large, as I mentioned earlier. We spread the entire left-hand side of the state. So we have great mileage and very spread out homes, very rural communities. Challenges that we have to overcome, again, limited public transportation. We have no Sunday service, which doesn't help for people trying to get to religious services or spiritual opportunities. We again don't have a second shift service, so people are limited to first shift employment quite often. There's a lack of public awareness around transportation options. So a lot of times in the city, people are used to using public transportation, and unfortunately in the Berkshires, using public transportation is oftentimes associated to a lower income population, so people don't generally try to use it. And a result of that, as well as the limitations that we face, we have a lack of ridership. Lack of ridership equates to lack of funding. If we have more ridership, we can show that there's greater need. And we have limited municipal support for COA vans. So fortunately, in my community, Adams, we have really great support, but most don't. The figure you have on the left shows the green is actually the fixed bus route system. So you can see many of the communities, if not most, that don't have public fixed bus route systems. And the white represent no providers for any type of transportation whatsoever. A lot of times they rely on families, neighbors, friends. There's, of course, many more challenges as well. So every time we go to a human service meeting, what do we always seem to talk about, right? We talk about the things that we don't have. We're always talking about, we don't have this, we have gaps in this, very much part of what I just shared with you. So what we need to start doing is thinking outside of the box. We need to start thinking about how to literally step in front of those challenges and how can we change that. We talked a little bit about it earlier at some of the keynote speakers presented and saying, let's start thinking about transportation not just as a vehicle, but a mode of transportation. How can we get around to the places that we need to get? Walkability and bikeability, the two very good things that many of us can do on our own. So thanks to the RCC, I'm the chair of the RCC, and it's been a great opportunity for me to meet many of the other transportation providers. If you're not involved with your RCC, I highly recommend that you do so. And then the Mass in Motion. Mass in Motion in Berkshire County has made great strides and success in creating walkability, bikeability, healthy options for people to get around for transportation. And my involvement with them has allowed me to be here today.
What is the RCC?
It's the Regional Coordination Council. Yep. So some of the great things that we did, and again, you have brochures on your table. I'm sorry, I didn't actually. Let me just steal one here. Thank you. You can see here, we had a few recumbent bikes actually donated to our senior center. So if you don't know what a recumbent bike is, they're generally three-wheeler bikes. Those bikes that you see there range between $1,000 and $2,000. So it was a great donation. Many other nonprofit agencies in our county were offered them as well. One is your regular standard bicycle. You pedal your feet. You have 21 speeds. And the second is actually for somebody with limited to no mobility from the waist down. So you actually pedal with your hands. It's a great opportunity as well for physical involvement, because if you use one bike for your legs and the other, you get a great upper body workout. So it's a really good opportunity for anybody. We also have at our senior center the Ashtabula-to-Cook Rail Trail, which goes right out our back door. It spans 11 miles. So it's a great opportunity I was sharing earlier just to get to the Berkshire Mall. If you're comfortable for shopping opportunities to use your bike or walk, you can walk the 11 miles. I don't suggest walking it, but using your bicycle. There also is other opportunities like eateries along the way and doctor's offices and the such. Then we created these brochures that everybody has on your table. So on the inside of your brochure, there's a great map that we created of our downtown. It's great for both locals and for tourists that come into our community. So what it shows is different designated loops that we did walking audits on. So these are safe routes. They also suggest where there's sitting places to sit, places to get water, places to sit. Use the restroom rather. We also designated where the fixed bus route runs through that, so people know that they can come into our community, grab the bus, and then go into another community and perhaps come back. It shows the mileage, so it's just a healthy option to increase walkability and bikeability. It also says some summer events that we have on the side. And then on the back, like the picture we have here, we try to promote safe routes to school, so seniors transporting grandchildren or children are collecting kids in communities to get to the school system. So rather than using the bus, they're walking to school now. And then they have these sort of walking billboards. So please warn me when passing. Excuse me. What these shirts have provided us with is an opportunity for bicyclists to sort of be aware that seniors can't just jump out of the way as quickly as they hear that little bell, ding, ding, when they drive past them at 1,000 miles a minute. So there's ones that say, please warn me when passing, and another that says loudly on my left or my right. So again, just walking billboards that show that there are other people there's a lot of needs on the rail trail in downtown, and just to be aware of that. Then we also have just a few other pictures here. One of my favorite photos is the gentleman on the bottom right. He is actually 96 years old, and he rides the 11-mile rail trail, 22 miles round trip from Pittsfield to Adams every single day in good weather. So it can happen at no matter what age, and hopefully we continue to promote walkability and bikeability in our community and healthy aging options. And again, my contact information.
Thank you, Erica, and thanks for showing us that you can do walking and biking in a small rural town in Western Mass. It doesn't have to just be urban centers. Okay, so let's welcome Janet Seckel-Cerroti.
So we're a little bit different. I'm Janet. I'm from Friendship Works. We are a nonprofit organization serving all of Boston, wherever the mayor is the mayor, and Brookline, all of Brookline, and a little bit beyond that for our medical escort program. But we just celebrated our 30th anniversary, and our enduring mission has been to decrease social isolation, improve the quality of life, and maintain the dignity of elders. And our vision really is to end elder isolation. But we were started 30 years ago with a grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. We were one of 25 programs throughout the United States, rural, urban, and suburban, to start interfaith volunteer coalitions. And to this day, even though we've changed our name and some of the way that we work, really all of our work is done by, it sounds different, by volunteers. So the staff that we have recruit, train, query, support, thank the volunteers that are actually doing the direct service. So our volunteers are retirees, students. So all of Friendship Works services are provided by volunteers, as I said, and we have several programs. Our medical escort program, which I'll talk about in a minute, our friendly visiting program, we're really like matchmakers, like Fiddler on the Roof, but matching people for friendship and weekly visits and support. Anything that a friend would do or a neighbor would do. Friendly helping, which I'll talk about in a minute. Also, La Cadena de Amistad is our outreach to Latino elders, and our Pet Pal program, which is our outreach to elders living in long-term care, in assisted living, and nursing homes. We touch the lives of over about 1,100 people, 1,100 different elders a year, and we are looking to double in size and have started that probably over the next 2 to 3 years. We are doubling in size because we see the need for the work that we do. Okay, here's just a little bit of a picture of some of our programs, give you a sense of it. So let me talk about the Escort program. That's what we're here for. We are not a transportation program. We are not a ride program. So that's where we differ. Some of our volunteers do use their cars and do it, but we are in an urban setting. There is transportation that's provided by the MBTA. There's also the ride, for people with disabilities. There's Mass Health that provides some transportation. There's cabs. There's all sorts of things. So volunteers may use their car, but many of our volunteers don't even have a car and don't want to drive in Boston. So it's a combination of things. But that's important, and I think that's where we differ probably from the other three groups on the panel. And we don't have public funding. We have a tiny bit of Title III. The rest is all privately donated. So elders require, they might need a range of needs: emotional, physical, anxiety, that somebody needs somebody to go with them. The vast majority of the escorts that we provide are for medical appointments. And the reasons that, most of the people that we serve, I just want to say, live alone, have functional limitations, and few, if any, family or friends nearby. They would otherwise not be able to attend or even make an appointment were it not for Friendship Works Escort. And also an interesting statistic that we found when Lauren Martin did research on us is that a large percentage of the people who use our Escort program are women who were never married and do not have any children. It was a statistically significant group of the people who use our Escort program. They may not necessarily be socially isolated or very old. They're a lower age cohort than our friendly visiting program, but they don't have anyone to go with them to a medical appointment when they need that kind of support. So the volunteers, they're primarily retirees, pre-medical undergraduate and graduate students, and medical professionals, but they're also just other folks who just want to help in this way. It's a very flexible opportunity. You can say, I'll do one escort a week, or I'll do one, every 2 weeks, or, I can't do it on Tuesdays, I can do it on Wednesdays. For us, we have a lot of different volunteer opportunities. This one, you do have to be available during at least some daytime hours, which you don't necessarily have to be for some of the other programs that we provide. The volunteer role is really that they provide the extra support, the door-to-door, and we're door through door. We're not door to door, and that's very significant for those of you, probably everybody here, who knows that definition. So we will go to somebody's home, help them put on a jacket, make sure that they're on time, go down with them to their transportation, make sure they get into the transportation, go with them to a hospital, a doctor's appointment, make sure those heavy doors, figuring out where to go in the hospital, which is very confusing, and one of the reasons people who might be not have mobility impairment but might just be confused or anxious makes it very difficult for them to want to go to a doctor's appointment. They'll go with them, they'll sit with them. If they're not being called for 3 hours, they may get up and say, hey, what's going on? Did you forget about Mr. Smith? He's been waiting here. What do you mean he doesn't have an appointment? Yes, he does. and maybe have to go with them to an x-ray or to a pharmacy before then again getting their transportation home. So they will advocate. They will also, on occasion, Mark Byrne, who is our medical escort coordinator, who you could speak to afterwards to hear a lot of great stories and also to get a little more specifics. Sometimes, if it's the ride or some other transportation, they've come, but your medical appointment has taken 2 hours longer than you expected, and they've left, and you are stranded there, which happens to be people alone, so the volunteer has to work with them to make alternate arrangements to make sure that they get home safely and not get stuck at the hospital. As I said, these are some of the statistics of the elders that we serve. 95% live alone. 80% have functional limitations. 64% have 0 or just one friend or family nearby. We're such a mobile society. Doesn't mean they don't have anybody, but not anybody nearby. And others would otherwise be unable or unwilling to make their appointments. These are some of the things that folks have said. You can read them, but I'm normally sad after my procedure and I feel tired and weak, but today the volunteer smile lifted my spirits. You gave me hope. And I know that's one of our escorts just told me the other day. He was visiting a few weeks ago or whatever, a woman, or not visiting. He was taking her and she was really kind of depressed and kind of cranky and everything going, and he just started making jokes with her and everything and talking with her, and by the time she got home hours later they were laughing together. So what a gift that is, that the escort actually becomes a friendly visit, turning something that would be very, very difficult and anxious and anxiety-provoking experience into one that can be actually quite pleasant, because many people, this is, the time that they get to actually spend with another human being who's really there 100% for them. So it's more than the escort itself. To make a referral, you can talk to Mark Byrne, who is here, who's our escort coordinator. What you need to do is, for us, and we can give you more details if you'd like to start a volunteer program in your area, but we do ask 2 weeks notice. That's a long time. Sometimes we do it for less, but people know after a while that, when they start using us, that they'll check with their doctor, and make that. But we do also provide escorts and transportation sometimes for other things. I'm going to skip this and go, the friendly, I guess, did I skip the friendly helper? Anyway, we have a friendly helping program also, and that's when people need things that are not medically related, but to go buy their own winter coat, and they want to do that and want somebody to go with them, to go to the cemetery on the anniversary of a loved one's death, to do other things that either need transportation or not, but some of them actually do need transportation or an escort to purchase. We went with somebody to go purchase a mattress. She needed a mattress, and how are you going to do that when you're 80 years old, but you still need a new mattress? And somebody went, with her, and then she made him lie on the couch and the mattress is with her. He goes, that wasn't part of it. Will you please lie down and see if this mattress works or not? So he felt kind of funny being a 40-year-old man with this 80-year-old woman on the mattress in the store, but you do what you're asked to do. So we are also helping to consult with other programs throughout Massachusetts to help them develop a volunteer caregiving program. We're working with a program on the North Shore right now to do that. But the transportation and escort guide that we started in the 1990s, late 1990s, because we realized there wasn't one resource for people, and this goes well beyond Boston and Brookline also, that our medical escort coordinators have spent a lot of time, and we're updating it, and there'll be a 2015-16 version of it. If you want one, you can call our office, and they'll be free, except we'll charge you for some mailing costs and so forth. But it really helps. It's a great resource for hospitals, for social workers, for elders, for family members, about what would give you the resources, what's out there, whether there's a cost to it, how long ahead of time you have to do. And my time is up. So that's the guide. That's the non-medical escort there. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Janet. I think that really illustrates that you can have transportation is not just a vehicle that gets you from point A to point B. Sometimes you need that assistance to get on the transportation, even if the person is not helping you, is not actually driving you, but they're helping you go through the whole process and get to the place where you're going, find your appointment. It's quite important, especially when you think about people who are potentially frail or who might be, experiencing early dementia, that sort of thing. So with that, I think we can and start to take questions. Our panelists are ready and waiting.
I noticed your comment about donations and contributions, and I'd like to hear what you have to say, because I've talked with organizations that have initiated contribution programs that have been incredibly successful in terms of letting the passenger not only make a contribution, but make a contribution with information about how much the actual cost of the ride was to the organization. So they know that when they make the contribution. I'd be interested in what you all have to say about contributions in general.
Our change in that language really came from our Board of Aldermen, in that they were really wanting us to implement a fee-based system. And we were pushing back on that because we thought that some people wouldn't be served if we implemented a fee-based system, and we would have needed to add administrative staff really to do means testing for those people who would not be able to afford that fee. And so in that change, we just started to change the wording. You often hear of the lunch programs at senior centers as free lunch, and it is, but it does give people that okay to not contribute, and we wanted to change that. We do try to educate people what the per ride cost is, and it's a surprise when they hear that we're paying around $13 a ride, and we're asking for not quite a third of that. So that's how we came about it. They have to. So the question was, do they make the contribution at the point of scheduling or afterwards? They actually make the contribution at the point of getting the vouchers. So we'll provide 2 complimentary vouchers to people who have never used the system before, just so that they can experience it and decide if they want to continue to use it. And so most people are doing that through the mail to us because they're dependent on transportation. But for those people who utilize the senior center, it's a face-to-face interaction.
Jayne has a much more well-organized operation than we do. We just really have posters up in our vans that sort of say what the suggested donation is, and when I go back, I'm going to start working on changing how we structure that. But we do a lot of public awareness around our transportation program. We're a small community, so we really rely on the public awareness to support our transportation. But we don't. One of the things that we do is around the holiday time, and really any time, is we don't have vouchers, we create coupons. So a family member can purchase, say, $25 worth, and anywhere in Adams, it's $1 each way. So a family member can purchase $25 worth of a coupon packet, and then that senior still feels like they're paying something, because when Mrs. Smith sees Mrs. Joan not paying, Mrs. Smith is telling the rest of the senior center that she doesn't pay for her ride. So it can create a bullying situation when that happens, but it also, when the coupon is being offered to be able to purchase, it still feels like she's contributing, she's giving, and it decreases that cash exchange between van driver and rider. So.
Yeah, we get a little bit of money from Title III, and the federal, they actually request that you do ask donations, so people on our mailing lists, and they might get it that way, just like anybody else does. But actually, of all of our programs, the medical escort recipients, we don't call them clients, whatever, the elders, we get probably more donations from them than from our Friendly Visiting or Pet Pals or any programs. I think people realize that what it costs to take a cab or something. So sometimes it's a $10 bill, sometimes it's $20, sometimes it's $2. But I'm surprised at how many donations do come in almost without a direct request, because people appreciate so much what the escort is done for them.
Janet, it was on your slide, but I wonder if people really caught the phrase, and I know, Lauren Martin, this was your research, that you found that that people actually missed medical appointments, right? If they didn't, they would not even, not that they missed, it was even more important than that. They wouldn't even schedule their medical appointments, right? Can you make a comment about that, please?
So in 2010, I worked with Friendship Works to evaluate the medical escort program. One of the questions that we asked them, based on a lot of literature, was that elders miss appointments, skip appointments, or cancel appointments because of a ride. And we asked them about this, and sort of anecdotally, we found as side finding. Many of them said, I'm not missing my appointment. I don't even schedule until I know I have someone who can take me. So it seems like even beyond people who are missing appointments, that some people are just not even scheduling a procedure at all.
I just want to add to that. Sorry, I don't want to take but for us, because we're not a transportation program, a lot of people either have emotional, physical reasons, and so without that supportive hand, a lot of this whole conference today, which has been fabulous, is where I talked about transportation needs. But as we get older, the frailty of somebody supporting you, going down the steps with you, just emotionally being with you through hours of wherever you're going, giving you a sense of emotional and physical safety is really important. And that's a population that we don't talk that much about, even in the aging world, but is much of the population that we are serving.
I have a question for the senior centers. How do you handle transportation for an individual who has no support system but needs to undergo, say, like a colonoscopy or a cataract surgery, things like that, and they need to get back and forth to their appointments?
I can touch upon it briefly. We actually didn't have a really great program for that in our town. One of the things, and Jana helped me out here a bit, but you may have heard a little over a year ago, our regional hospital closed, and in Berkshire County, Northern Berkshire Regional Hospital. And so a lot of people were canceling their doctor's appointments because their doctors were traveling, in some instances, 30 miles away, and they didn't have a way to get there. So as a result of that, several of our senior centers pulled together with some support from other agencies, including Berkshire Rides, Berkshire Community Action Council, and a few other support from a local bank, and created some funding and a program to transport people to out-of-town transportation trips. So as I mentioned, we very often go past Pittsfield, and for us to go to Pittsfield from Adams, it's about a half an hour ride, and that's where most of the doctor's offices are. So we created a program with a shuttle service, dropping people off, picking them up, and we were finding in the beginning that we weren't utilizing it as often as we needed, and we think it may be a result of people had just canceled their appointments because they weren't sure how they were going to get there, so then they later had to book them. Since then, we've created we got some funding, and we created a program called HINT, which is Help I Need Transportation, where a human service agency can fill out an application for a senior, and we can use senior vans if they're available, volunteer drivers if they're available, and/or taxi services to get to appointments. So for us in the Berkshires, a lot of the appointments, the procedures that we need to do that you mentioned, not colonoscopies, of course, but more in-depth surgeries, they have to go to Bay State or even Albany. And so for an individual we just recently took, it was pretty much would have been a life-threatening disorder had he not had the surgery. And it was a round trip with a taxi, and a 1 hour wait, was $180, I believe. Around $180 for him to get there. So our grant was able to help pay for that person to do that. But without that, he wouldn't have gone. He just simply did not have the transportation options and or the funding to be able to pay to do that. So
I'm going to say what Erica said before, is we're not as organized as you guys are around that. We actually have a guideline that we put together for participation at the senior center, which makes it clear that somebody needs to be independent and well enough to be independent of staff and each other. And so we just extrapolated those guidelines to our transportation as well. We do refer to our ASAP agency that has a medical escort program. We refer to other transportation services that might be able to provide that more one-on-one. And although we do contract with the taxi company, they do have the option to use vans. So sometimes it is a driver with more than one person. So our rationale is, if you're serving more than one person in a vehicle and one of those people needs extra attention, we're not providing the same service to the other. So thankfully, we're in a medically rich area. We're not covering as many geographic miles, and we seem to be meeting that need. I'm sorry, ASAP, Aging Service Access Point. So the elder care agency that covers the town in which we serve. So Springwell covers an 8-town area.
Thank you.
Not really. I think Erica really covered what we did. I would just stress that the reason that we were able to do this and help folks out in the short term and now it's been longer term when the hospital closed is really because we built these coalitions. We have transportation people and council on aging people and municipalities and private institutions all talking together, and it created a great program that was really needed.
I want to just give a couple words to what Jana and Erica are alluding to, which is the Regional Coordinating Council. The Regional Coordinating Councils actually exist across the state, and our office, which is Mass Mobility, is co-facilitating those with the Mass Department of Transportation. And it brings together people who are transportation professionals, human service folks, councils on aging, to talk about the transportation needs in their regions. And we've seen some really great collaborations come out of those groups. So if you're at all interested in being part of a group like that, please let me know, and I'll connect you to the one that is in your region. I think Bill had a question.
Okay, hold on.
Go ahead.
Actually, I'm going to insert again.
Sure.
But get on Theodora's listserv, her mailing list for the your mass mobility newsletter and everything. We have one question here, and then you said there's Bill has a question, and Jayne has a question, and then we should be finished around 3:15, okay?
Great. Yeah.
I actually have more of a comment. My name is Madalynn, and I'm the director of the Barnstable Senior Centre on the Cape. So we talk about the transportation's challenges that we face, statewide, but particularly on the Cape, where we have such a high percentage of seniors. And Barnstable covers 72 square miles. So we're really challenged in meeting the needs of our senior population. And we have 2 vans that we have received through our RTA, which has been great, but they're very expensive to run, a lot of wear and tear. We do about 30,000 miles a year on them. So one of the things that we're doing, just to add in, like thinking maybe a little differently and more efficiently and cost effectively, today, actually, when I get back to work today, we have a new electric vehicle that we were able to secure thanks to a DEP rebate of $7,500 and a local dealer matching that. So we have a 3-year lease on a Nissan Leaf that basically we have a solar array at our senior center, so we'll have a charging station. It will essentially pay for itself. And one of the other challenges that we've had is with our vans. A lot of volunteers don't want to drive these big vans, and they feel like it's a little intimidating. And we have a lot of people that want to come in and drive, but not vans. So I think we will attract more volunteer drivers driving a vehicle that's a little bit more, comfortable in size. So we're excited. It's going to help us sustain our programming. That's, I think, municipally speaking, that's one of our constant challenges, is we understand the needs there. For those of us that receive Title III funding, we can't really charge a fee, and we don't want to deprive people that are so in need of this service. So it's really important that we keep the program affordable and accessible.
That's a great idea, and I also really recognize the challenge for councils on aging to run giant vans that are not fuel efficient at all. And I know that there is some talk about trying to figure out if there's a way to support, giving out some smaller vehicles through the various kinds of government funding, as well as the large ones. But an electric vehicle is a great idea. Yeah. Absolutely.
Janet, because your volunteers are working with vulnerable people, you mentioned your application. How do you vet your volunteers?
Well, we recruit them from all walks of life, as I said, and we interview. They fill out an application. They can do it online, or we can send it to them on paper. We do a query check on everybody. We do at least two reference checks for everybody, just as if you were doing for employment. We do have to check if they're driving, that they have a active, and safe license and things like that. And that's basically what we do. And yeah.
Corey, I'm not sure, it's Massachusetts Criminal Offense Record Inspection. And Jayne.
Thank you very much for some great information. Helen Kirshner, in her session, talked about the fact that before you start a new service in your community, you ought to audit what exists before you do this. How do you set about on a given basis as you look at your strategic planning, and I think, Jayne, you just did that, audit what others are doing so that we close these gaps and we increase the flow of transportation, we increase access. For example, I think, Tim, you said you do not provide service on the weekend and your services stop at 5 o'clock. But the life of an older person does not stop at 5 o'clock, and the life of an older person continues on the weekend. So what is your auditing technique as you work to reduce fragmentation and increase supply? How are you working with all the others in the community to be sure that we increase the life quality of that older person?
I can give you two concrete examples of what happened in my region. Number one was the Regional Coordinating Council that Theodora mentioned. The first task of the Central Mass Regional Coordinating Council was to audit transportation services that were currently available. That was the first order of business. And it was surprising to me, and I'm in the transportation business, how many services there actually are available that I was not aware of. As I said, for my own organization, I often refer to it as stealth marketing. We're the best kept secret in central Massachusetts. My problem is getting the word out for the services that are available. From my organization's point of view, another example, I worked with a social service agency that had a specific need for about a dozen specific clients that needed work-related transportation. They weren't seniors, they weren't disabled, they were just fairly low-income people that either had entry-level jobs or had the opportunity to get an entry-level job. So I had the resources. I had, in some cases, excess capacity. They had the knowledge of who needed what when. So partnering with that particular organization, we created a program called ReadyBus. Just to give you a couple of quick facts on it, first couple of months that we implemented the program, we delivered 20 rides. Currently, we're delivering over 250 rides a month to, in effect, low-income people, getting them to and from their place of business. So again, Regional Coordinating Council was one way we did the audit, and working with a social service organization in my area was another way we did it.
We work a lot with the regional planning boards as well, and that again came through the collaboration and partnerships through the RCC, the Regional Coordination Council. The differences I think between Tim, myself, and Jayne will be similar to mine, of course, is that we're funded municipally through our municipalities. So we're really restricted to the communities that we have, the hours that we operate, and the funding we get, where Tim can actually provide a fee for his service. So.
Great. So I think that we will need to cut off there. I just want to emphasize a couple of things. One is that you don't want to miss the next speaker, which is, I believe, Secretary Pollock is going to be here to close out the day. And then after that, there's a reception where you can go and see some driverless cars that Ford has brought, so you don't want to miss that either. And also, I just want to emphasize that this is really not the end, but it's not the beginning. As Joe said, this has been an issue for a long time, older driver safety and senior mobility. So I would really encourage you all to stay involved with this effort. Check back to the website. All these presentations will be posted there on the UMass Boston website. And join a regional coordinating council. Reach out to your colleagues and start to fill the gaps that Jayne mentioned. Nina, do you have anything to add? Yeah, thank you so much to our panel, Janet, Erica, Tim, and Jayne.